So good evening, everybody. I'm proud once again to introduce to you Mr. Bolarinwa. He's my pastor, he's my brother, he's my friend, and I look up to him greatly. So he has been pastoring today. Today is Sunday, but I said, lie, he has to be here. So that's why we have him here this evening. So he's going to be taking us on research design. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Bolarinwa on board. Mr. Bolarinwa, over to you. Jerry.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you for this privilege and the time. I'm very sorry if I've not joined in as you expected me. Am I audible enough? Please let me know if I'm audible enough.
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. Thank you very much. My name is Bolarinwa Oluwaseun Shegun, and a day like this is usually very busy for me, and but thank God that I'm able to make it. And in a short while, I will quickly speak on research design, and it's going to be interactive, and as as time comes, we will be asking us questions and some area that we have to make our contributions. Please let me quickly share my screen so that we go straight to what I have for us tonight. And I want to believe that everybody has been enjoying this series. It's not an easy task, but then if you are able to sacrifice your time, definitely you will know that it's not a waste of time. It's not a waste of time, and it's really worth it. So please let me know if you can see my screen. If it's up, let me know. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You can see us.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. So I think the view should be better now. All right. So I want to quickly speak on the research design. The previous lecturers have give us a lot of information about what research is. You cannot but write research as a student in higher institution, irrespective of the course you are running. So research is peculiar at this level. You have to write one research or the other. And um, 2 weeks ago, Dr. Anokoro spoke on what research is. That is a very good background for this um, lecture for today. And last week it was research. I think it was literature review because there is no way you will conduct a research without literature review. In fact, literature review is the first thing you have to do, and that was established also by the by the lecturer. So, research design is very germane. Just like your architectural design is very important. When you want to um, put up a building, you have to get an architect who will give you, okay, this is the design that will be applicable, maybe due to the kind of land you find yourself. It's not every structure, it's not every edifice that can be placed on a particular land. So also in research, it's not every design that can be used for all researches. There are design, there are designs which are peculiar to one study than the other, which will help you to get your results. So the learning objectives for this class is as displayed on the screen. By the end of this lecture, we should be able to differentiate between different types of research designs. We should be able to select appropriate research design for its study, and being able to also enumerate the strengths and limitations of different designs. And that will inform you that, okay, one is more applicable at this time due to its strength, and we may not be able to use it, maybe due to limitations or weakness for another study. Then you should be able to apply research designs in practice. We'll just see few research topics in this area. Then we'll just brainstorm on which type of design should be applicable. We'll also talk about ethical consideration in research design. Research design is a blueprint or master plan that specifies the methods or procedures for conducting a research study. And we can also say it is a framework for the planning, implementation, and analysis of a research study. Now, the framework talks about, okay, what you need to do, even at the planning level. What are those things that you have to put in place? Then, how do you implement your plan? Your design will tell you, okay, this is what you should do because this is this design that you have chosen, the plan you have chosen. This is how you are to implement it. So, research design tells us about, okay, how we are going to implement these the design that you have chosen for that particular study. Then, how you are going to do your analysis that will help you to get the required results. Classification of research designs. Um, Research design can be broadly classified into two, as one, quantitative design and qualitative design. Under the quantitative design, don't forget that quantitative talks about things that can be counted, things that can be assigned number to, or quality that are objective, things that, yes, objectivity. So under this quantitative design, you have experimental and non-experimental research designs. For experimental research design at this level, we can have true experimental, we can also have quasi-experimental. Still under quantitative, non-experimental design, you can have descriptive, you can have survey, you can have correlational, you can have epidemiological research design. We'll briefly talk about each of these ones. Then the qualitative design, which is the second division, second subdivision. Under the qualitative design, you can have phenomenological, you can have ethnographic, you can have grounded and a grounded theory, then you can have case studies. Uh, each of these ones has their peculiarity, when you can use them, what you can use them for, and the purpose for their use. Now, let's start with the quantitative design. I already said that this deals with number or quantity and objectivity. And under here, you can have experimental and non-experimental. For experimental, when we talk about experimental research design, it is concerned with cause and effect relationships between variables in a study. We talked about independent and dependent variables. A lot have been said about this. And um, in this experimental research design, the independent variable is usually manipulated through intervention or what we call treatment. And you measure the effect of that treatment or intervention on the dependent variable. So that is what experimental research is all about. It's about cause and effect relationship. So if you are working on a particular topic which is centered around effect, definitely you should know that that is tending towards experimental. Although you may have different types of experimental, that true or quasi-experimental. So any research topic where your focus is centered around effect, then you should know that you must be able to measure the cause and effect relationship, and that is towards experimental research design. So, what is true experimental research design? In true experimental research design, yes, the cause and effect relationships established, but then there are three major characteristics of true experimental research design. These are: one, manipulation, and this talks about conscious control of independent variables. Here, it's not as if um, the researcher is not aware. You are aware, and you must consciously control the independent variable. You must consciously input your treatment, your treatment, which is the experimental for the experimental group. So there must be manipulation, and that manipulation is for the independent variable. Then control, that must be control group. If you are carrying out an experimental research, there must be an experimental group, there must be a control group. So control is very, very germane in experimental research. And in experimental research too, you must also find a way to factor in the how to control the extraneous variables which may interfere with your results. Then number three characteristic is random assignment of participants. That is, there must be a way in which you do your randomization, that every participant will have equal chances of being selected. It's not as if that you just choose a group of people to be in the experimental group, while a particular group will be in the control group. No, there must be randomization. Everybody must have equal chance of being in either of these groups, which you are going to assign your subject or participants to. So let's quickly look at types of true experimental. We have we have a couple of types, but then we'll quickly talk about two or three types in this class for today. We have what we call post-test only design. Post-test only design. Take note, post-test only design. Here, all the features of true experimental design is put in place: randomization, manipulation, and control. You must ensure that your participants or subject are randomly assigned to either the experimental group, as you see on the screen, or the control group. But in this type of true experimental design, you only give treatment to the experimental group. You only give treatment to experimental group, and you take your post test, or what we call your reading. You take your reading, all right, your measurements, your findings, you collect your data after that. All right, this is the only post test. It's only after you have given the treatment, after you have administered that treatment, that you now take the what you take your data, or you collect your data. So you collect data for post test for the experimental group. You also collect data of post test for the control group. Then you now look at the difference of this. Right. Then the second type we'll talk about is pre-test, post-test design. Pre-test, post-test design. All the characteristics of the true experimental design are also take note of here. But then data collection is at two different points. Your data collection is at two different points. You have your experimental group and you have your control group. You collect your information or data, all right, before the treatment. That is what we call pre-test. You first and foremost want to know, okay, what is the present situation? You collect your data. Then you have that as a form of background information about the experimental and the control group. Don't forget that in the assignment of participants to experimental or control group, you must make sure that all these participants have equal what they have equal characteristics. They have similar characteristics, similar features peculiar to your study. All right. So you take your data collection for the two groups, then you introduce your treatment. You introduce your treatment for the experimental group, and thereafter you also collect your data in order to now analyze these results and see where the differences are coming from. It's okay. Then we'll talk about the third one, which is called the Solomon 4 group design. In this design, as the name implies, Solomon 4 groups. You have four groups. you have four groups. You have two experimental groups and you have two control groups, which are randomly assigned. Participant has are randomly assigned to each of these four groups. Now, before you introduce your treatments in this Sonoma 4 group design, you collect your initial data for the for the first experimental group and the first control group. That is experimental group 1 and control group 1. You collect your pre-information the data, pre-treatment data, and what is peculiar about this group is that you are going to introduce treatments to experimental group 1 and experimental group 2. Don't forget that the experimental groups are the one you are administering your treatment to. So you administer your treatment to experimental group 1, the experimental group 2 also. After that, then you now do what we call your post-test or data collection after that treatment. Don't forget that you are tending towards something. Here you want to know, okay, the effects of that treatment on the experimental group 1. Then you want to also know whether there is even difference between the post-test results for the experimental group 2, all right, which you did not even collect your pre-test information from. Then I want us to just make our contributions. I want us to just make our contribution here. What type of studies do you think will require true experimental design? What type of studies do you think will require true experimental design? Am I still in this class? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, right, right. Thank you very much. What type of studies require true experimental design? You can just type that. Okay. You can see somebody saying intervention study. All right. Intervention study. Okay. Any other person? Any other one? Okay. Is there only one student in the class? Do you have just one student in the class? Okay. All right. That's a good one. Intervention study requires experimental study, experimental design. All right. Although intervention study can require either true or quasi-experimental, depending on the research topic. All right. But most often we apply true experimental research design in laboratory settings where there is almost perfect control of extraneous variable. In nursing, most of our studies are not something that you can do in the laboratory. We are not conducting laboratory related studies. All right, we don't work in the lab. We work with human beings. We work in natural settings, and that is why true experimental research design might not be applicable to most of our nursing research because we conduct most of our researches in natural settings, in the hospitals, in the community, and you understand now in these around us, not in the laboratory settings where you can have perfect 100% control of extraneous variable. If you cast your mind back to the lecture given by Dr. Anokuro 2 weeks ago, she mentioned something on this. If you can remember, she mentioned something on this, and she said that even when you are conducting true experimental research, it is expected that you have about 99% or 99% confidence interval. That is almost all your data will be between that curve, within the curve. So meaning that it tends, if at all you have anything short of 100%, it should not be something that will be too wide. So through experimental research design is something that you must be able to control all the extraneous variable, right? And the example of such design is applicable in something like clinical trials or what we call randomized control trials. All right, at different levels. So now let's quickly look at the limitation and strengths of true experimental. Now, one of the strengths of true experimental research design is that it is most reliable to establish cause and effect relationships. There is no way we want to measure cause and effect relationship between two variables. That's you will not be thinking about experimental research design. And if you want to look at the most reliable one, is what is true experimental research design. And for that reason, it has a great degree of purity, great degree of purity, of your data, the data that you are collecting. You are very sure that, okay, provided that you have taken care of your extraneous variable, you are very sure, okay, that the data you are collecting is pure, is true of your population, and there is high level of validity, and reliability, even with true experimental research design. Also, it can be generalization. Yes, we're talking about generalizability. It has high level of generalizability. That is another strength of true experimental research design. And limitation one, it cannot be replicated in studies conducted on human beings due to ethical issues that are related. Yes, due to ethical issues. People, even individuals that are involved in clinical trials or randomized control trials, they pass through a lot of things. They have to actually give them a lot of information about the study they want to embark on, and even after that, there are still other things that needs to be done to take care of ethical issues here. So, and another thing is that it may not be applicable in natural settings like hospitals or communities where nurses work, where we conduct most of our researches. It may not be visible because of the peculiarity of that design. Then often difficult to get cooperation of study participants due to the treatment or intervention. You have to introduce treatment. Some treatment may be in form of giving them drugs which have not been tested on human being on human being before. I want to test it on this group of individuals. There are lots of ethical considerations, ethical issues that are involved in this, especially for those who conduct clinical trials. So at times it may be very difficult to get cooperation of participants. They ask a question over and over again. What is it like? What are the things that they may likely suffer as a result of that? What are the risks that they may encounter, or that may be associated with participating in that study? All right. So that's for that. Then quasi experimental research design. The term quasi means partially or to a limited extent or limited degree or resembling. So in this case, we'll be talking about something similar to true experimental, but not totally, not fully true experimental, but something related or something resembling true experimental. And that is what we call quasi experimental and design. This design involves manipulating an independent variables to observe its effect on the dependent variable, but it lacks either control or randomization. Yes, manipulation is there. You must introduce your treatment. You must give your treatment. Yes, in order for you to know the impact or the effects of that on the dependent variable which you are trying to measure. All right, because you are going to observe the effects of that manipulation on the dependent variable. So you have to introduce your treatment, but quasi lacks either control or randomization, or both can even be absent. All right, that's what makes it quasi, not truly or purely experimental design. So in there are different types of quasi experimental. You can have what's called time series. In time series experimental research, the researcher experiments on a group of individual or small group over a long period of time. And what happens is that there is alternation of of treatment, or what we call intervention. There is alternation in your treatment. All right, you give your treatment, then you withdraw the treatment, then at another interval you give that treatment. depending on the time period of that study. Timing of that study will determine when, at what time, at what interval. It's every 2 months that you give the treatment, then you take your finding, then you also give them another period of 2 or 3 months, then you give another treatment, then you take your measurement. It's usually a study taking a long period of time, just like a longitudinal study anyway. So that is time series. Then we can have what we call non-randomized control group design. It's also a kind of quasi-experimental design. In this case, you have you have your experimental group and your control group, and you give your treatment to the experimental group, and then after that you take your post test, or your data after that treatment. But take note that you only give your treatment. You give your treatment, you take your pretest, you do your treatment or intervention, then you take your data later to find out whether there is any difference in the findings at the end of the day. So the strengths of these include that it is practicable. This is more or less like intervention study that is common in some of our nursing researches. All right. We want to test the knowledge of a group of people, then you actually maybe collect a data from them, maybe pre-test, then you introduce your intervention or your treatment, maybe you teach them about a particular topic, then thereafter you now collect your data to find out whether there is a difference between the pre and the post test. So the strength of this include that is applicable in natural setting. You can apply it in natural setting. Then it can still test the causal relationship to some extent. It can still test causal relationship. And limitation includes that you may not be able to control the extraneous variables. So there may be extraneous variables that may still interrupt your findings or your results, that may affect your results one way or the other. That could be part of limitation of your study. Maybe when you are concluding your study, could be one of the limitations that you write, inability to control some of the extraneous variables that you find out in that study. I hope I'm still audible in this class. Then, since there is no control, it is less reliable and weak for establishing causal relationship because it lacks control. And times there may not be a true randomization, may not be done, but then you only do your manipulation. Okay, thank you. I can get a response for somebody who told me that you can hear me. Now, this is applicable in most of our intervention research in natural settings. Yes, in evaluation research, if you want to evaluate how your program has been carried out, maybe there is a program elsewhere, and you want to find out whether this program has actualized the purpose of setting it. You may want to evaluate that program using an intervention study or outcome research too, so it is applicable. Now, non-experimental research design. This is conducted in a natural setting or real life setting where it is not possible to control all variables. And researcher collect data without introducing treatment here. You don't introduce any treatment here. You only collect data, from your study, your respondents or your study participants, in their natural setting without altering anything, without introducing any treatment to them. All right, and you analyze your results. These results may lead to hypothesis testing of association or relationships between your variables. Yes, because you are not dealing with cause and effect relationship here. You're only looking at, okay, is there any relationship? You are looking at the relationship or the association between your variables. And there are several types of non-experimental design. You can have descriptive, you can have correlational, you can have epidemiological, you can have developmental. Time will not permit us to talk about each of these ones, but then descriptive research design, you can have univariant descriptive. You can have univariant, in which case you try to describe you do your description by probably giving the occurrences of a particular characteristics, the frequency or phenomena of a particular event, and you take note, you document this, all right? And it does not necessarily focus on a single variable, but then there may be one or more variables that are involved in this univariate. Then you can have what we call explorative. Here, as the term implied, you can use it for exploration. So descriptive design is not only for description, you can use it for exploration of phenomena, or to identify a particular phenomenon, and to explore about a particular phenomenon. Say you can have comparative. Here maybe comparing, you know, groups, maybe two groups. All right, you may conduct research focusing on knowledge and perception of two groups, and you want to compare the two groups, the knowledge between the two groups, maybe between the nursing students and maybe let's say medical rehabilitation students. There are two different groups. You can maybe the data you collect from this one, you may want to compare the level of knowledge of nursing students with those in medical rehabilitation. Under correlational study, you may have what you call prospective or retrospective. Dr. Anokuru spoke on this, I can remember. You know, when you talk about prospective, it's something that's looking at, okay, coming from the having an idea that, okay, what can be the impact or the effect of a particular situation, a particular condition later in life, later, right? I think she cited the example of COVID, you know, in that study, that when COVID came, nobody prepared for it. But up to now, people are still researching into the they are still researching into what happened during COVID. All right, it's not something that the people expected. Retrospective study tells us about, okay, what had happened in the past. All right, here you want to you are seeing the cause, you are seeing the cause or the problem, and you want to know that, okay, what is the cause of the problem? All right, you are seeing the cause presently. They want to know that, okay, what actually is the cause of that problem. You want to also look at, okay, what is the prevalence, what is the number of participants that were affected at that time. And oftentimes when you are doing retrospective, you may need to collect secondary data, maybe those data that have been documented in the records, data that has already be established. You may want to find out what they have. Then you can have epidemiological study. You may have cohort study. Cohort study usually takes a form of longitudinal study, in which you may have different cohorts, and then you have to study this group and for a long period of time, and you know the trend and the outcome of probably of the condition that will have of that epidemic. All right. So usually a cohort study taking a long period of time. For case control, you may have a particular case that you want to study. You have a particular case that you may want to study, and you do that in depth to find out, okay, what is the cause of this, and how has it been able to to occur? What is the cause of that over a period of time? Then you have what we call developmental study. Under the developmental study, we talk about conceptual. You may have conceptual or longitudinal study. Conceptual study talks about study that in which you have to collect data at a particular point in time for your study population. All right. But for longitudinal, you have to collect study, you know, at different points in time, at different points in time, depending on the interval or at which you want to collect that study, depending on the study you are carrying out. Maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 3 weeks. You want to, because a longitudinal study is not something you can just conclude, you know, overnight. So um, we under qualitative design now, we have different types of design. We have different types of research design, but in qualitative, generally, we want to look at about narratives, because you are collecting subjective data from your study participants. You are collecting subjective data. It's not as if that you are giving them a questionnaire as it's commonly done under quantitative study, but here you want to collect information from the participants themselves in forms of narratives, in forms of sharing their life experiences, and giving meaning to these experiences. So data are in forms of narrative, and you can have different types of qualitative research. You can have what we call phenomenological research. You can have what we call ethnographic research. You can have grounded theory research. You can also have historical research, and each of these qualitative design have their applicability. All right. For instance, if you want to, if you are conducting a phenomenological study, it means that probably there is a particular phenomenon or something that you want to focus on, and you want to collect data. You want to find out about the lived experience of people regarding that particular phenomenon. Let's say lived experience of cancer patients. All right, you want them to share their experience. That is what that is all about. All right, you want them to share their experience and the meaning that is derived from this experience. So oftentimes you see in qualitative study, it is the participant that will be telling you their stories, and you are just to record or to write down these stories or narratives that they are telling you, and from that you can generate your sub teams, depending on which area that you are focusing on. Now, may I ask, for those who are staying in the class, what determines the design of a particular study? I haven't talked about different research design. What do you think um, will determine the design of a particular study? If you want to conduct a particular study, what do you think will determine the design of that study? Please, can you just type your responses? And just type your responses. Okay, variables. Okay, you can see that from Elizabeth. Variables that you want that's in your study. Yes, the variables. Okay, another person talking about variables. Okay, all right. The nature of the problem. Okay, I can see the purpose of the study. Yes, types of research study. Yes, purpose, objectives. Oh, these are good. Yes, these are good. Yes. You are right. Yeah, research objectives. Yes, yes. All right. I think is a good one. It's a top. It's a dump up for everybody who has made that contribution. Yes, objectives of the research. That's Oladele. The research question. Yes, the research questions. All these are very, very important. They are determinants of research design. So let's quickly look at this determinants of research design. Number one, you see somebody mentioned that the nature of the research problem. The nature of the research problem will tell you, okay, what's the sign you are going to use, you are going to adopt in this study. Now, the nature of your research problem is what will determine whether it's going to go in way of experimental or non-experimental. All right? Whether it's going to go in qualitative or quantitative approach. So it is the nature of the problem. All right. So if the problem is something that is tending towards, okay, just descriptive, you are just talking about knowledge and the perception of a particular group towards a particular thing, then you know that is not from that topic. Definitely, that will not go in an experimental form. That's more or less like something non-experimental and probably descriptive. It's okay. Then somebody also mentioned this, the purpose of the study. What do you want to do in that study? Is that study for description? Is your study tending toward prediction? Is it predicting the relationship between variables? If you want to predict the relationship, especially you want to talk about the cause and effect relationship, then you know that okay, um, you have to go in form of experimental, maybe quasi experimental. If you are looking at exploration, want to explore exploration, although experimentation may come in form of at times in terms of non-experimental, all right, but oftentimes exploratory study are usually qualitative, all right. So if the purpose of your study is for exploration, for description, or for correlations between variables, then your research design will also tend in that direction. So you cannot just pick a particular topic and just choose to use a particular design. It will not work that way. So you must know what you are looking for. You must know, okay, maybe I want to use this as a description. This is going to tell me, okay, to predict the relationship between my variables and so on and so forth. So that will inform you that. Then the researcher's knowledge and experience. At times, researcher may choose a particular design which he or she is familiar with based on his or her knowledge or the experience of that researcher. Probably the researcher has seen, okay, in a related study, this is this design that was used. And if you are doing something related to that study, you can also adopt that. But you must be very sure that the person you are even trying to follow after has done the right thing, or else you also will be doing the wrong thing. Then the researcher interest or motivation is another one. Then the sample size. Now, let me quickly talk about this. Your sample size is very important. Take it for instance, if you are going to be using, let's say for instance, your study participants is about 400 participants. Your sample size is about 400 participants. You will note that you will believe that it may be very difficult for you to reach all these participants if you want to do a qualitative study. If you want to do a qualitative study, to collect data from 400 participants, it will be not maybe it will be very difficult. For instance, if you have a study in which sample size is very high, maybe you have anything above 100 and above, that's too much for qualitative study. Even 50. Many a times, if you are conducting a qualitative study, it may not your participant may not exceed like let's say 20 or 25. Well, depending on the type of qualitative you are doing, and depending on the way and manner in which you are collecting your data. If it is like you are doing interview, maybe one-on-one interview, it may be very difficult for you to reach 50. But if you are still doing something like focused group, maybe you want to have about three groups, but in a focus group which should not exceed between, let's say, 5 and 10 participants. If you have like 3 or 4 groups, you will notice that you're already having about 40 participants in that study. All right. And for you to be able to do that effectively, you will notice that it will take you a lot of time. So your sample size also can also be a pointer to the kind of research design you want to adopt. All right. And then availability of the study participants also is another thing that you have to consider. Availability of the respondent or study participants is another thing you have to consider when you are choosing your research design. If for instance, if you are doing an experimental design, let's say a non-experimental design, or let's say a quasi-experimental design, an intervention study. All right, it's an intervention study, but then you observe that even your respondents are not available. You don't have enough respondents for you to give your treatment to, to do your intervention and collect your data, it will be very difficult for you to use that. All right, you may reconsider maybe your sample size, or you reconsider another topic, or you think of another thing to do entirely, so that you'll be able to get enough responses from your respondent. Then resources available. If you don't have enough resources, you may not be able to use a particular research design. All right, you may not be able to use a particular research design. For instance, if you want to collect data from about 200 participants now, let's say using the executive study, definitely you may have to make sure that you have enough resources to be able to meet all of these participants. Even if it is a qualitative study, you will need resources to meet them. So availability of availability of resources is also very important in your research design, so that you'll be able to get all the necessary information from this participant. You have to spend money. You have to reach them. You have to know where to meet them. How many occasions do you have to meet them? So you have to think about that in choosing your study design, because there are design in which you have to meet your participant, more than one time, and there are studies in which you conducted like cross-sectional study, that you just collect data from your participants just once, and that is all. You don't need to repeat it. And the ability of resources makes it important. Then possible control of extraneous variable. You are conducting a study that you have to make sure you control extraneous variable. Then you have to make sure that, okay, you may have to tend towards maybe something experimental, maybe quasi experimental research design, because for most of uh, um, natural settings, it may not be possible to control some of these extraneous variable. It may not be possible. You may control to some limited extent, But then, if you need to control all additional variables, then it means that descriptive or survey or something like cross-sectional study might not be applicable to your study. All right. So I want contribution from the group. Look at this research topic. I want us to think about which design will be applicable. You can just type your responses. The topic says effect of educational intervention on knowledge of testicular cancer among adult men in University of Ibadan or your state. Which design do you think will be applicable in this study? Yes, I can see responses. Quasi experimental. Somebody said quasi experimental. Okay. Yes. Which design is the only one person that we have still have in the class? Yes. I need more responses. Any other one? Any other one? Okay. Using pre and post survey. Okay. Okay. Somebody said non-experimental design. Non-experimental design. Okay. Okay. Non-experimental design. Um, okay. Well, look at this topic. Okay, quasi experimental design. There's someone say experimental design. All right, definitely look at this topic. The first word here says effect. Effect. With this, you may not be able to use a non-experimental design, because you are trying to look at the effect of educational intervention on knowledge of testicular cancer. You may not be able to use non-experimental. This is going to be experimental. And I think for people who said quasi-experimental, they are correct. All right. The answer here is quasi-experimental. So quasi-experimental is what we are going to apply in this kind of study. Then let's look at this next one. This next one talks about effect of parenting style on child academic performance among students of selected secondary schools in Lagos. Yes. Which design do you think would be applicable here? Yes. What design can we use here? Yeah, because of our time, can we make it snappy? Am I still audible? Am I
Yes,
still audible?
yes, sir, you are.
All right, all right, all right. Okay. So can we just type our responses? Okay, non-experimental, descriptive, non-experimental, descriptive, non-experimental, non-experimental. All right. Now, when students write this kind of topic for research, the first thing that comes to mind is that, okay, how are you going to measure this effect? Let it register in your mind. Any topic that comes with effect, there must be a way you want to measure that effect. There must be a way in which you want to measure that effect. So I've seen responses for this also, non-experimental, descriptive, cross-sectional. But do you think this non-experimental, descriptive will be able to measure the effect of parenting? Do you think it's going to help us to measure that effect? Do you think it may help to measure? All right. You see, look at this topic. It's talking about measuring academic performance among students. The first thing that comes to my mind when I'm putting this up is that number one, this may take time. It's going to be a longitudinal one. It's not something you can just do immediately. All right. Then you are measuring the effect. You may have to go quasi experimental, but then it's going to be longitudinal. It's not something that you just measure now. You have to have your control group, you have to have your experimental group, and your control group. All right. You may have to divide students into groups where you have different parenting style. All right, parenting style. Then you monitor this group along. You monitor them. You can. It's not something that you just do once in a while. It's not something you cannot just collect data just at a point in time. It cannot be actional. Something longitudinal. And you have to collect, you have to have your study group, all right, the control and the experimental group, and you have to monitor these people over a long period of time before you can actually see the effect of parenting. And parenting, the parents will be you know um will be doing their parenting, caring for their child, unaware that you are conducting research, all right? Because if they are aware, they may want to change that they want to change their parenting style to something that will suit them, all right? So this is going to be quasi and use of contraceptives or bed spacing in Akure South local government area of Ondo State. Um, I think this one is straightforward. What research design do you think we can apply in this case?
What's the topic again, sir? It's not showing on the slide.
All right. Okay, somebody said you can't see the topic. Is it this? Is it this one or which one? Hello,
Your slide,
hello.
your slide has gone off,
The
sir.
third question, sir.
Oh, you can't see my slide.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Maybe I can. Let me try and reshare. And I'm still in the class. I don't know. Maybe it's my network. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. Let me try and reshare my screen. Let me try and reshare my screen. I think. Sorry, can you see the slide now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
The slide is not here.
It's
It's
not
not.
up.
It's not back.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Um. Okay. Let me see. Uh, I'm trying to share the experience. Okay, let me share again. Sorry, is it on now?
No, not yet, sir. There's nothing.
Not yet.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm very sorry about that. Oh, sorry, maybe something went wrong, and I'm still here. Um, this is the screen.
Can you try to stop sharing and then try again?
Hello,
Well, I can hear you, sir.
please. Can you see my screen now?
No, sir.
Hello,
No, we cannot.
hello. Can you see the screen
No,
now?
sir. No, sir.
Not, not yet.
Yes, sir. We cannot see the screen.
Ah, sorry. Let me. What happened?
I think probably you should.
I've tried to share all over again.
Should
I've tried to share
And
the
then you
entire
can go
screen.
out of the class and rejoin the class. It will come, it will pop up.
Okay, maybe I can get out and rejoin, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Let me do that then. Oh my God.
You guys should remember to fill your attendance form. They've posted it on the charts. Fill your attendance and evaluation. Mr. Barner, can you hear us? Maybe it's network from your side. Hello?
I've tried to rejoin the class and
Oh,
I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
we are
Can you hear
hearing.
me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I logged out and I've rejoined the class. I'm trying to share my screen now. Let me try and do that now. Sorry, can you see my screen now?
It's still loading. Yeah, it seems it's yes, yes. I see it now.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very sorry. Maybe it's my network. I didn't know. I'm very sorry about that. Um, so okay. And look at this one. Talks about women's perception and use of contraceptives for bed spacing in Nakuru South local government area of Ondo State. This can take in form of survey, all right? Those may be a descriptive study, all right, but maybe take a form of survey. Then look at this one: prevalence of neonatal jaundice among babies born at Afebabalola University, Ado Ekiti, Ekiti State, Nigeria. What design do you think we can use in this case? What design do you think we can use in this case? Right? I think this more or less like because you are looking at prevalence. This one like retrospective, right? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
this like retrospective, because you want to look at the prevalence of those babies that were born at Afebabalola with neonatal jaundice. All right, so this like retrospective, it's descriptive, but then it's retrospective study. Now there are things you have to consider. We talked about ethical consideration. In any research that you are conducting, confidentiality is very very important, and that talks about being able to keep data and data sources protected from individuals external to the study. Anybody, be it no matter how close the person is to you, all right? And as much as that person is not part of that study, the data and the data sources must be kept protected from them. Then we're talking about anonymity, all right? As much as possible, you must ensure that confidentiality is maintained. In any type of study you are even conducting. All right, your sampling frame must be used for research purpose only, not for any other thing. Right, not for any other purpose. That sampling frame that talks about the list of all the study participants of your sample. It's if you have such, that's your sampling frame. Then it must be kept confidential, and there must not be means by which people can be easily tagged, maybe by name, maybe things that can make other who are not part of your study to identify who has given a particular information, or who has who have been part of your study for one reason or the other. There must not be any means by which people can be easily identified. All right. Then informed consent is another thing that must be.
Your slide is not scrolling now.
My slide is not moving.
Yes.
Can you see what I have on the slide now?
Yeah, we're supposed to be on 25, but it's still on 24.
Where are you now? Can you see the next slide now?
It's supposed to go to
Please.
25, but we're still on 24.
Wow. What happened again? Oh. Well, I can see that it's not even moving on my phone, because I'm actually presenting with my system, but I also have my phone on. I also observe that it's not moving on my phone. What happened again? Oh, very
Click on
sorry
the
about
25. Just click on the 25. Your cursor
that. Okay, I
is
should just click on it.
yeah.
Is it on now?
Just click on that slide 25. Because your cursor is moving, so it should do. Yeah, that's
Is
it.
it on now? Can you
Yes,
see it now?
yes, we
Can you
can.
see it now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
maybe I can
Yes,
just
sir.
leave it like this. Maybe I can just leave it like this. So informed consent is also very important. You must provide your subjects or your study participants or your respondent all the necessary information that they have to know about the study. There should not be anything hidden There should not be anything. It is unethical for you to collect data from somebody, and that person is not aware you are collecting data. All right. So I'm currently on the feed. I'm collecting data for my study, and I've met study participants who did not give consent to participate in my study. It will be unethical for me to collect the data from them without informing them. All right. So you have to inform them, give them all the necessary information they have to know. Then they have to decide on their own whether or not to participate without coercion, without enforcing them to participate. And if they choose not to participate, it must not have any negative impact or any negative effect on them or on the treatment they are receiving. Maybe if it is an hospital setting, it should not have effect on them anyway, any form. And those who have even given consent to participate in your study, all right, you must ensure that you educate them that if they wish to leave or to quit at any point in time, that they are free to do so without any negative impact on them. All right. Can you see the next one?
Yes, sir.
This one talks
Yes, sir.
about Helsinki Declaration on Biomedical Research. I may not be able to. I only extracted this. I may not be able to talk about all what this document is talking about because of time factor. You see, these documents also outlined some principles that must be followed when you are conducting any biomedical research. Autonomy, that talks about respect for human rights, respect for human dignity, respect for human freedom, and your research, your study, whether experimental, non-experimental, must not harm the respondents. And if at all they have some level of risk, they must be aware of what risk is associated with the study that they are participating in, and how they are going to be taking good care of what treatment will be available for them, you know, to actually over to actually overcome that risk or to maneuver over that risk. Then beneficence, doing good. Your study must actually be of benefits to 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 the patient to some extent. All right. And if at all the benefits is not much, the benefit or the good side of participating must outweigh the harm. If it is study that will come with some risk, the benefits of participating in that study must outweigh the harm or the risk that the patient or the respondent, sorry, I use patient, that the respondent will be exposed to. Veracity, that talks about truth telling. Then justice, equal treatment. When you are assigning your participants into different groups, either control, experimental group, there must be fair treatment, equal treatment in that randomization. It's not as if you just put somebody that you know as a control. When you know that you will not introduce any treatment to them, you are not going to give them any intervention, and you only put people that are not close to you to the experimental group. Whatever happens to them, you know, let it be. No, it shouldn't be. There must be equal treatment for all that are participating in the study. Then these talks about human rights guidelines for researchers. You know, there are some rights that we talked about rights of participants the other time being respected. These are some of the rights that the study participants have, and these rights must be respected. Rights to choose whether or not to participate, an option to withdraw from being penalized or coerced, right to give full information about the research, what will be expected, and the right to raise questions about the research as it progresses. Yes, you don't say you don't ask questions. No, they have the right to ask questions, and they have the right to receive answer. And if you don't provide them necessary answer, they have the right to quit that study. Then they also have rights for protection from unnecessary risk or harm. We talked about unnecessary risk or harm as a result of participating in that study. Then the rights to inform of any potential risk or harm that might be incurred as a result of participating in that study is also their right, is a personal right. Then the right to privacy, dignity, confidentiality, as well as right to inform about the research results even after you have you are done with the study. The participant have the right to know, okay, what is the outcome of that study. They have the right to know. And in climes where people know their rights, people cannot just infringe on this right anyhow or else. That will be issue. That will be legal issue. All right. So I think by and large, we have come to the end of the discussion. Thank you for participating in this study. I really appreciate for the time given to me. I hope I have not spent too much time um,
Thank
tonight.
you very much, sir. So we're going to quickly leave room for a few questions before Mr. Bolaniwa will leave us. For those of you in group 3, you have met your mentor today. So it's Mr. Bolaniwa you have been chatting with. So if you have any issue, please feel free to always contact him. He's busy, but he will always respond. So if you have any question, quickly, any question? Okay, so while I'm getting ready for you to prepare your question, I want to quickly refer us back to article to Mr. Bolaniwa's slide from slide 25. I need you to take note of everything that is presented in that place. Write it down. Slide 25, ethical consideration. Now, what Mr. Bolaniwa is teaching us is chapter 3 of our research project, where we begin to talk about our methodologies. And he has already started by saying that the first thing you have to discuss, you need to tell us the type of study you are doing. Is it experimental? Is it non-experimental? What type of? So, and when you are talking about that, you have to give us a reason why you are doing what you are doing. This is a descriptive study. This is a quantitative descriptive study. And you have chosen to do this because this is the reason. According to scientific evidence, you have to give that reason. It must be in your study, so take note of that. Then when you're writing, because Mr. Bolaniwa has quickly introduced extra information that talks about ethics. Somewhere in your chapter 3, you are going to come across a place where you have to write about the ethical consideration that you have in your study. And under this ethical consideration, Mr. Bolaniwa has painstakingly listed every point that has to be under that particular discipline. Everybody that was evaluated across all the Southwest schools, they failed, except maybe 2 or 3 people. Is either they write 2, 3, or they will not write at all. So, but all these points are very important. When you are writing on your ethical consideration, I'm sure maybe that is why it took his time to explain that. And I'm sure another lecturer is still going to emphasize it again. You have to discuss the issue of confidentiality. You must talk about anonymity. You must talk about informed consent. You must talk about the principles of human rights, beneficence, maleficence, justice, veracity, everything. You have to talk about it in the next slide. That's what is in the next slide. That's 26. So take note of that. The slide 26. Then you also have to talk about how you were able to. Mr. Bolaniwa, can you click 26, please?
All right.
So everything you are seeing in that place, it must be included on that paragraph where you have to talk about ethical consideration, what you did. Every point in that place is very important. Take note of that. Don't miss out anything. So even if you want to do copy and paste, make sure the person you are copying and pasting, it's captured all these essential points. If you miss one of them, you may likely lose a mark if the person marking your work knows what he or she is doing. Do we understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So take note of that, so that, because most of you, I notice that we will be sending lecture materials to you, then you still be asking me questions that are not relevant. Meanwhile, the lecture material is there in front of you. So if you are not reading any lecture material, this particular one is the one you will need, and I've told you how you need to put your attention on it, because you will need it in your chapter 3 to write something meaningful. So that is that. Then, if you want to ask questions, ask now before Mr. Bolarinwa will tell us, because he's going to tell us the activity for the week. Since people have not asked any questions, Mr. Bolarinwa, please, what's the activity for the week, so that they have that at the back of their mind?
I have a question.
Okay, somebody wants to ask a question. What's the question?
I have a question, just to clarify.
Okay, Samuel Oluwafemi.
Okay, so when Mr. Bolarinwa was presenting the other time, he asked us a question about effects. There was a second one on parents this thing, and it was quite tricky. But then there was something I heard somewhere that whenever we are doing anything on effects, it's always towards experiment. I just wanted to clarify that.
Hello, Mr. Bolarinwa, did you hear the question, please? Hello? Network really that bad. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now, sir.
All right.
Did you hear that question?
I think the person mentioned something related to effect. So what is the question all about?
You used an example about effect of, I think something about parents.
All right.
Yeah, so he said it's like that topic is a bit tricky, that he thinks that anything that is related to effect will automatically go to maybe experimental. So he wants you to shed more light on that and clarify again.
All right. Okay. As you see on the screen, also you can see is the option I put there is quasi-experimental. It is still experimental, because when you talk about effects, you want to measure you want to measure the impact of something on the other person, on the other thing. You want to measure the impact of one variable on the another variable. You understand? So that's why I said it's quasi-experimental. You cannot apply true experimental. You are dealing with human beings here. You are dealing with human beings in their natural settings, not in the laboratory. All right. So you are still right. The person that told you is experimental. It is correct. But what I now said is that this topic number 2, you see that it's quite different from number 1, the first topic. Both are effect. I think you can see my slide. Can you see my slide?
No, sir.
You cannot see my slide again.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me try and say, okay, what I have in this slide, which is the second one, is all right. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I hear you,
So
sir.
the person who told you that if you want to measure effect
Yes, sir.
or in a research that is going to be experimental, the person is right. And what I have here also is quasi-experimental, as a design that will be applicable to measure the effect of intervention or knowledge of testicular cancer on among adult men in University of Ibadan. Is going to be quasi-experimental. You must have a control group. You must have your experimental group. Are we together? All right. And you may choose you collect your pre-test, your baseline information before you give your treatment. Your treatment here is in form of the educational intervention, in which you're going to be teaching them about testicular cancer. But before you teach them, which is your intervention, you have to have your underlying data, all right, which you collect from them, from both the control and the experimental group. And after that, then you introduce your intervention, educational intervention, to your experimental group. However, in this case, you at times you may choose to have one group pre test and post test group, because it is possible to have one group pre and post test for one group. You may not have control. At times when you are dealing with experimental, you may not have control at times. You can just introduce your intervention. Then you measure the effect in the results of their knowledge, comparing the pre and the post intervention results this time around. So you are still right, and the person that is going to be experimental is right. But then, because we are dealing with human being, in which you may not be able to control all the external variables, and because of other things that are involved, it may not be true experimental, but it's going to be quasi experimental. Did you get my explanation?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Bolarin, what's the activity for the week, sir?
So the activities for the week is that the student should formulate 5 research topics, and give an applicable, what they think will be applicable research design for that topics, for each of the topics. 5 research topics, and they should state what should be the applicable design in carrying out that study. Just 5 is a very simple one.
Okay, so to make it easier for you, when you are writing that 5 research topic, include your research topic and write. So you can do it in form of a box to make it easier for you. Write the topic, write the design that you think is suitable, and give us the rationale, scientific rationale. So there must be a published evidence to show that, okay, if you are writing that this is a descriptive study, give me a published evidence to say that according to so and so, the descriptive study is this, and it's applicable to this topic because of this, so that you are sure that you know exactly what you are doing, and you have seen evidence that that is the direct way to go. And in any way, those are the things that will give you points when you are writing your research, your main project. So get used to it and start generating it in that form. It helps. So some people were marked down because of that. There must be a rationale. For at every stage you get to now in this methodology, anything you say, you need to back it up with evidence. I am doing this because it is this, and you give evidence. Okay, do we understand? Do we understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So that should be simple.
No, I don't understand the scientific rationale side.
What is scientific rationale?
You said we should. Okay, scientific rationale is like something that is backed up with evidence, scientific evidence. So I don't know. He said we should give like according to this. I don't get that part.
If you write your topic, you tell us what type of design you are using and why. The why is the rationale. Why are you using that design? And so you're not just writing the why from your head. You are writing the why from a published evidence. According to James et al., a descriptive study is this, and it's applicable in this type. Give us the reason. So we want to know whether you understand why you have to use that. That is the essence of asking you to write thesis. They want to know whether every step you take, you know why it is important to take that step and whether it is really applicable to what you are doing. And that's why I say start by using your own topic. So the number 1 topic there should be the topic of your research, then the other examples you have generated. Did we all get that? Okay, thank you very much. Is Chika in class 12? You're supposed to be a contender for our week 4 prize, which is 50,000 naira. Unfortunately, I think you missed one class, so it affected you some sorts. Then I think you missed out on one submission. There is John Adeoti. You're a major contender for week 4 prize, but unfortunately you missed out on week 1 submission. So for those factors, it has affected the two of you, because the criteria is that you must have attended all classes, and you must have made submission, and you must have had outstanding contributions in your submission. So all these things are very important. We are not joking. The money is there, but unfortunately, one way or the other. So your choice. Nurses, you guys are disappointing me, but we will still continue to give you our best.